Hello, and thank you for joining us on Inside Out. My name is Yvonne Mokondani. Now, today we're looking at the complexities of the family setup, particularly paying attention to children who grow up with absent fathers and those who then reunite with your fathers at a later stage in life. How are the experiences for those who grow up without? And what does it mean for one to reunite with a father? Is it important? Is it not important? Why do people need to do it? Why do some people feel such a longing to just be with their fathers in their lives? This is what we're going to be looking at today. And we have quite a rich panel to help us with that. And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves, starting with you, sir.
My name is Mnyaradzi Sawanu Angero, a writer, a chaplain, and a student as well of the world of the Bible and the world around the Bible, which means I'm learning every day.
You're learning every day?
Yes.
All right. And you, ma'am?
All right. My name is Chingetrefaru Mayowe, otherwise known as Ambassador Mayowe Jr., and I'm an author and I advocate for culture, our cultural heritage and pride.
All right.
My name is Vimbai Chironga. I'm a child rights advocate and also a transformational coach.
I must thank you all for having joined us. And I'll start with you, Chenge. You said among the other things that you do, you're an ambassador for cultural heritage.
Yes.
What does that mean for you as a young person in this modern world?
In this modern world, what it means for me primarily is judgment. Because if I'm not being told I'm too young to know what I know, I'm being told that I am advocating for demonic stuff because our culture has been demonized. That's the sad reality. So growing up, my parents taught us about culture, tai werengerwa, ngano, and all of that because I didn't grow up in Zimbabwe. So when it comes to culture, I knew it. Even giving my father food, kupfugama tai pfugama, to wash his hands, give him his food. Same thing with the guests. It's how we grew up. So for me, I've known about culture growing up, and you respect it, especially when you don't grow up in Zimbabwe, because then you realize how rich it is. So that's how I know a lot of what I know. I also talk to a lot of old people. They have a lot in their brains, their experiences, anything they will tell you. So I'm just trying to advocate for that so that other people can also be proud of their culture, from the food to the clothes to everything. Yeah.
Chaplain, we will get into the matter of the day, but you know it's quite related, right? She says being an ambassador of our culture as a people for her means judgment, you know. And why do you think that is so? Why is it demonized? Why do we look at it in a particular way? You see, even the way she's dressed, akasunga duku rake and all that. No gono akasunga duku, you know. So yeah, why is it that today's society is like that? And when it comes to embracing who we are and what we stand for as a people.
Well, sometimes the problem with us, number one, is low self-esteem. Number two, the problem that we also have, especially in our cultural setting, is thinking that anything and everything that is Western is Christian. We have suffered for a long time from the disease of eating the food together with the container. That's the problem that we have as Africans, whereby we see everything that is African as evil and everything that is Western as Christian. So we would also need to reconcile our culture, being informed by the Bible, because the Bible is also a cultural book. Also read about people's cultures and missionary activities. The missionaries who came to Africa also had their culture. So let's also try to balance these things from a biblical perspective, using the Bible also as the standard of truth, right? If she dresses like this, does the Bible condemn, right? If I dress like this, does the Bible condemn? If one decides to dress like an African, does the Bible also condemn? Because Americans dress like Americans, Europeans dress, eat, and behave like Europeans.
And I'm actually thinking to myself that I've probably started a whole conversation that needs another day. But now getting into the business of the day, we're looking at children who grow up without their fathers and those that then reunite with their fathers at a particular stage in life, right? Vimbai, let's look at the traditional family setup. How important is it where you have my baba, Vana just being in that one house? How important is that?
Okay, so the nuclear family structure is very important because you have the mother, the father, you've got the siblings, and also bringing in that cultural perspective. We have Gogombuya, the grandparents, we've got the aunties, everyone coming in through that whole community. So already in its sense, it gives the child a sense of identity, some stability, and also there is that that system where one has got so much security, they've got richness in them in terms of you want advice, you want anything just around life itself. There is that oneness, there is the Ubuntu, there is the communism. So that nuclear family structure is very important in terms of the well-being and also having a well-rounded child. Looking at the behavior, the personality, it's I would say it's very important having that set up.
The nuclear family setup, Chaplain.
Okay, yeah, it takes a community to raise a child. In this instance, we are talking about the godly idea or the ideal, what God actually intended, how He created things. As of now, you see a world that is upside down, but it wasn't so in the beginning. Because when God created two people, Adam and Eve, they lived together as a family with their children. You go ahead, you look at the models of marriage in the Bible, where you see Isaac, Ishmael, right? Two different mothers, but learning from their father and mothers as well. So we move together as a family. When Jacob is in transit, when he's moving from Laban's land to his land, to Canaan's land, he is with his family, his wives and his children are also there. So a child should learn from the mother, from the father, from the grandfathers, because God's idea is to make sure that a name is perpetuated into the next generation. For instance, what am I saying? I'm saying, I'm Nyaradzi my great-great-grandchild should also know about me, right? My name should be called upon that particular great-grandchild. So this is important. This family, in Africa, even in the Bible, atina zvakunzi mwana ndio kwaningi. Kana zvitonzi tese tichinzi tiri vana vaAbraham, tiri ku-identify vana baba vedu nambuya vedu Sarah for that.
Right. It takes a village to raise a child, right? The importance of the community in raising a child, Chengeta. And you also mentioned another thing that took my attention. Kutanzi Zita, it should live for generations to come. Let's look at some of those children kuti warirwa kwa mai vako, and watora mutupo wekwa mai vako vakusenem ndeya mai mutupo wako pamwe hautouzive. What does that mean, culturally, and nekuzo kufamba kwemazita for generations to come?
All right, so I'm speaking from a cultural perspective, right? And from a cultural perspective, though it is the community that raises the child, mwana ndi wa baba, that's what they say. That is why we are given our father's totems and not our mothers. This is not to say we do not honor our mothers. Even culturally, the mother is a very important, vital part of everything. Without her, there's nothing. So, you give the honor to both places. There's a certain order in everything. Now, culturally speaking, if you have your mother's surname and you have your mother's totem, what the belief is, Pachiwano, is at some point you are going to go back and find your father's people, because life won't be going the way it's supposed to. And again, that goes back to, I'm not twisting your words, but that goes back to balance. There's a way things are supposed to be. So at some point, if the parents, and this is not putting blame on the mother or the father, but if the problem is not fixed while the parents are alive, it will probably be fixed through the children or the grandchildren. It will right itself.
What problem?
There are certain problems that come with not knowing your father, and a lot of them is kudzungaira. You'll be in one place for so many years, just going round and round and round and round. You could even get an illness, and this one is not even Chiwano. You could literally get an illness, and it's stemming from who your father is. For you to get help, you need to know where that illness came from. You can get an illness where they say you need the certain blood type, but this one came from the father. Now you don't know who your father is. Again, not placing blame, because life situations happen. Sometimes people's fathers die before they even get to know, and the woman won't even know where he went to. You know, some men run away from their responsibilities. It happens, life happens. But these are the problems that you could end up facing. And then I've also noticed that some children who've grown up with their mother's surname, when they have their own child, they then approach the civil registry and say, is there a way I can change my surname? Because this is my child. That's when they start, for some of them who never cared, that's when they start trying to look. And if unfortunately you really don't know, then, you know, obviously it's not of your own fault, but things have a way of righting themselves. That's what I've learned.
The issue of identity, being able to identify yourself for who you are and where you actually belong. How important is this in a child's life? Mwana achikura, you know, having your right name, you know, kuziva kuti unobva kupi, unombori ani. How important is that in a child, or is just one of those things that's not important?
It's a very integral part of one's being to know that I am Mbai Chironga, I am a child of Mike Chironga, and I come from Chiweshi, from Howard. Mtupo wangu ndishava. Knowing that, yes. So knowing that, it gives me a sense of identity, you know, and having that name, that's who I am. I come from this kind of family, this generation. Yes. So like you said, right to the fourth generation, generations to come. So even as a child looking regionally, internationally, nationally, a child has got a right. They've got the right to identity. This is why there is birth certificates. There is advocacy for that a child should have a birth certificate. And really they would say, who's the father of the child? Yeah. So even as they're growing up, they want to know, who's my father? Who's my dad? Where do I come from? Where's my grandmother? Where's my grandfather? Paternal or maternal? But all that, someone wants to know who they are, where they're coming from. Because once one knows that, also they have that sense of security, that belonging, confidence, self-esteem, just like that, to say, I am who I am. And that's where I belong. And in everything they do, someone can just walk right up, their head up, and say, I can do whatever I can do and wherever I can be. And you find those who do not have that privilege to know where they came from, in terms of self-esteem, in terms of how they handle themselves within a community, within themselves, their relations, things a bit on the shaky side, because they really can't, they don't know how to relate with themselves, actually. Yeah.
And you and I should have a conversation after this program, because you come from Chiweshi, so I think oh, really? And Chengeto?
No, I come from Bikita. I'm a Mamoyo, so Mashingo's my side.
Okay. So now, so Chengeto says, not knowing your dad can bring you problems in life. And iwe ndo unotozovatsvaga baba vako kuti hai ini ndiri kudzungaira ndiri panzvimbo 1 zvinhu zvangu hazvisi kufamba kana kuti ndarwara ndaita sei umbonzitsvaga vedzenza rako. In the Christian world zviri kweri?
Okay, you see in the Bible the father placing blessings upon his children. For instance, you see Isaac blessing his children before he died. You also see a similar scenario appearing in the life of Jacob, blessing and cursing some of his children before he died. So the father plays a pivotal role, especially, number 1, especially in identity. Number 2, in blessing, or even cursing sometimes his children. Allow me also to say, in as much as the biblical narrative seems to be more patriarchal, it seems as if it's giving us names of males in the Bible. As I read it, I'm looking at it in the covenantal perspective, where I'm saying, okay, because when the man marries, right, or when he has a wife, these two are one. I also see my mother in my father. The wife is always there. But when you read the book of the Chronicles, these are histories of people. This so-and-so, son of so-and-so, son of so-and-so. And the Bible actually dedicates another chapter in the book of Matthew, the New Testament, whereby we are hearing Jesus, the son of this, the son of this, the son of this, the son of that. That is very, very important in the life of a child. It's very, very important. That's why we say in as much, I mean, we are talking about the father, but I also want to say the mother is yeah, because Jesus was brought up by Mary, the Virgin Mary. Moses was also brought up by a loving mother, Jochebed, right? And these two women are also recommended in the Bible, but the father plays a pivotal role. His absence may cause more harm than good in the life
But
of
why
his child.
is that so? And why do you, as a man, just move around, leaving your seed around the country, around the world, yet you know that this child's blessings or whatever lies within your hands? Why not take it upon you as a man to be responsible enough and not cause these problems in this child's life?
Now I'm speaking from a biblical perspective, because I came here to dig deeper into this book. That's when you hear preachers, but I would want to call it criminal, because if you just do child seeding everywhere, you seed, and you forget your children, what exactly are you doing? That's criminal before God. And I would want also to say that that's also criminal even within our cultural setup. A father has to stand up, own up, and bring up his child.
And Chingeto, why do I have to be the one looking for my father? Ko Ivo kundichag.
Do you know that, when the world needs to be balanced, when I say balanced, I mean we cannot all be good, we cannot all have common sense.
Okay.
Right. There will be some people who lack the sense, they lack the maturity, they lack the intelligence. You leave your seed. By the time you want to find it, perhaps you can't find it. Or it wants nothing to do with you. Because that's sometimes the case as well. And usually it is the young person, like, again, from an aspect of Chiwanu, and I'm pretty sure perhaps you've heard this being said before, that kana mzimu ichidautaura inotaura pane mzukuru. Unfortunately, I don't know why that is, but unfortunately, that will be the toll that you now take. Because perhaps you've grown up being called Nzo, because that's your mother's totem, right? But then now you start dreaming of Shumbas. And they're saying, come find us. If you now have that situation, you have no option but to now find them. And the good thing is, dreams is also an aspect that's in the Bible as well. God speaks to people through dreams. He speaks to people through various means, right? Because he knows that people understand from a different perspective. So for some, it's that thing of also, it also just comes back to identity. I just want to know. Even if you don't love me, even if you don't want me, I just want to know who my father is. For some of them, the fathers come, then you find out it was adult problems that stopped you from knowing your father, because that happens sometimes. If people break up in a bad way, the mother can say no, right? Sometimes the father really wants nothing to do with their child. But at least if the child knows kuti, though my father does not want me, I know kuti kumusha kwangu nde uku, right? Some of them even then look in the mushas, and perhaps there'll just be that one gogo, or that one tete, or that one my guru who says kuti aiwa mwana wangu. It gives them that thing of identity of, even if my father doesn't want me, I know where I come from.
And there's other people who say kana uri mwana wekunze wemsango, as would say in Shona. Kumsha kwenyu kana kune zvinonetsa mamepo kana kuti chii vakafamba zvinorasirirwa mwana wemsango. Iwewe wacho usina kukura nababa usina kuti ndiwe uchatambura vanongozvirasirira ikoko.
The thing is, again, I say kuti mwana ndewa baba. So if people are doing that, it literally will also go back to the father, because that's your seed. But then again, it also goes back to the thing of a father can bless or curse. We cannot control what someone wants to do. So if a man decides that these are the children I love and I don't love that one, and he curses, unfortunately, but also there is that thing of, you have your mother. Your mother also plays an integral part. Both a mother and a father are protectors in different senses, right? My father was that stable protector. I knew that if a war came at my door, he would be there at the front. But I also knew that if by some odd chance that he's been overcome, my mother's there. There's those things of your mother's prayers, your grandmother's prayers, paternal, maternal.
Mm-hmm.
Those are blessings that pass down through blood, the blood that runs in your parents.
Mm.
So even if my father doesn't want me and he curses me, the rest of the bloodline spiritually has seen what he has done. It can go back to him or it cannot work because apana chanda tadza. All I wanted was to know my father.
Okay. And in that quest to know your father, wakura, now you're living your life and all of a sudden life starts happening and then you just get to a point where you need to look for this man, no, this person. You know what I'm saying? Does it not maybe come with some sort of, causing problems, or you have a balance in your life? Now there's this person that you need to look for. What does it mean for me?
I think it also depends at the age where you're at. Sometimes when you're older enough, probably just the aspect of you just knowing, that's all you want, because they haven't been there for years. And I am who I am now because probably my mother and my mother's side, and he's never been there. So it's just that part I want to know, just to have closure, and that's it, right? But then also when probably someone is younger, they've got so many questions and the mom probably cannot answer them all. And as much as they may not want, depending on the circumstances of how the father was not there, probably it was a very terrible divorce, and probably the mother is like, I want to protect my child from this man because it was toxic, right? But then that child has got the right to know, right? And you can't deprive them of that right. So it's now the part of the mother to be there, to be the moderator, to be the protector, the guider, and the educator. Yes. So where there is that aspect of potential harm, then the mother is able to protect their child. Yeah. But when they're now older, you're saying there is need to have a level ground, and they're able to communicate. Yeah. But also the child should know how it happened for the father not to be present. Yeah. So in all of that, I think depending on the age, but more so if it's a younger age, they're minors. There's also, people need to be very sensitive about it, because you don't know how all these emotions they're going to come through. It can be very disruptive to the child's mental health. Even at school, it can affect them, how they play with other kids. They're at the sporting field and someone say, oh, my dad is cheering me. And I'm like, where's my dad? I don't even know my dad. They've got all those questions. Yeah. So when there is that reunification that needs to happen, I think there's also need to have probably counseling prior or even after, because you also want the child to have that balance and to be able to embrace and know how to deal with all the emotions that's going to come. There might be resentment, aggressiveness, or bitterness, or even excitement. I now know my dad, you know, that kind of thing. So everything has to be managed and they have to be guided. Yeah.
And now that you've mentioned that, it just got me thinking about my own story. It's getting personal. Because I grew up without my dad. And I remember in primary school, I'd come up with these stories because I thought, as young as 7, right? I thought to myself, oh, okay, an ambassador, you said your dad is a diplomat, right? An ambassador is this person who probably represents the country. I was young, so he's probably not in the country for a long time. So I told my friends as young as 7 that my dad is an ambassador, so that's why you don't what? You don't see him. I had to come up with a story to fill in that gap. And I always ask myself, do our African parents know what we go through as children just to fit in? You're talking about your dad, and I have nothing to talk about. And now I'm this 7-year-old mind that has to come up with a valid story to justify why my dad is not here. Do you think African parents actually know that? Or they think, you've got food, school fees, you've got a roof over your head, you're happy?
You know, that it's something that is inborn. You don't need to be told to take care of your children. Let's look at nature, for instance. Animals know how to protect their young ones, their children. A wise farmer, when he sows seed, a wise farmer, if he wants a good harvest, good and healthy harvest, he makes sure that he looks after the seed. He waters it, removes weeds, pests, deals with pests, right? In this scenario, in this instance, we are saying the father has planted a seed. right? When you've planted a seed, and if you want a healthy, responsible, right, confident child, you have to make sure you are ever present. Dealing with pests, dealing with weeds, taking care of the seed. So if you are absent, then your child will grow up among thorns. There is stunted mental, physical, spiritual, and social growth. That's why you see healthy families where the mother is there and the father is there. They also produce healthy children, healthy communities where you see the elderly high above there, the old-aged, middle-aged, young ones, they are there. They are also healthy communities, healthy nations. You can take it further, but it starts from this immediate family. The father has to take up his fatherly role. The mother has to take up her motherly role. These two together will produce a healthy
They'll produce
nation.
a healthy nation.
Yes.
Chenga, do you think our African parents think about it? Do you think it even occurs to them that, you know what, I have this child whose dad is not there, you know, what is going on in this young person's mind? Or it's just, oh well.
I think they definitely do think about it, because personally for me, like I said, my dad was an ambassador, right? And they're very busy. They're very, very busy. And I remember that specifically certain things that were important to me. The moment he showed up, I have extra energy. It matters.
It matters.
It matters because I had extra energy. I'm looking at other people and their dads are there, you know. And it's a thing perhaps where fathers are the ones that have to show up for that event. Because schools have these things where it's like, only your mothers are coming. And then there's also that thing of perhaps schools need to start looking into that. Because some people have fathers that are either late or not present. Mothers that are late or not present. It's rare, but it happens. Right? So now you're looking and you're seeing everybody with their dad and yours is not there. Then when he comes, it's like relief. It's my safe place is there. So it matters a lot because a child needs both aspects. When I was talking to Mbai earlier, she even mentioned that when there's a male presence, her child immediately listens. The moment a male presence comes, whether it's her grandfather, whether it's her uncle, whether it's whatever, she immediately listens. And it was the same with us growing up. The moment our father heard us raising our voices where we shouldn't be raising our voices or anything, all you hear is, hey, that was enough. That was literally enough to put you back in line. You knew I had overstepped my boundaries. If he gets to the point where he's saying your name, then you know. You know, everybody has nicknames at home. But when it comes to the point where your name is now being said, you know you've really crossed that line.
Yeah.
Right. So definitely it matters and it is important. And I definitely do commend people who can co-parent and the parents actually being able to co-parent, because sometimes it's the mother that's the problem, sometimes it's the father that's the problem. But and you know, in that case, really there's really nothing that the other person can do other than protect their child, right? But for those where both want to cooperate, even though they perhaps hate each other, but they're cooperating for the child, I commend that. Because you're giving the child that balance, even if you're not living together, you're giving them the balance they require.
And I'm actually thinking to myself that maybe we've been too hard on the men, you know, blaming them, hey, this and that. If you know Shadaya, right, one of his, I know.
Who doesn't know him?
But one of his posts, he mentioned how it is important for you as a woman to pick carefully who you are going to choose as the father of your children, right? Because he says you can't just pick any Tom, Jack and Jill to be your, you know, your baby daddy or whatever, because you're doing this for your children and this is a lifelong decision that you're making. So what do you have to say to your fellow women out there, you know, who may decide, I just want to have a baby now. Ndakwenda for IVF, you know, I just want to fall pregnant as long as I have a child. I'm just picking my best friend. We are katite mwana because now I want a child, you know.
Things like IVF, right? I think these scientific measures were put in place for people who have very unhealthy or very complicated situations. So it was built up to help them, right? But then nowadays, people are just saying they're trying to get away from the norm or how it was supposed to be for procreation. So they'll say, you know, I don't want to be attached to any man. I don't want to be with any man or to feel like I have to be confined to one or attached to one. So if I do IVF, it's just me and my child. But then at the end of the day, they, like you said, they'll still say, who's my dad? And are you going to say, I don't know, I just picked you like a tomato in a grocery shop? Yeah, because you don't know. Because for IVF, and probably it's just a donor. Probably, and you don't even know who's the donor. What you really did get was just a profile.
What if it's just
without
maybe
a
my
name?
best friend, I decide to have a baby with my best friend.
Or maybe
it's a one-night stand from the bar.
One night stand from a bar. Obviously, you don't know this person. But if it's your best friend, now that's a
You know?
question to say, does that best friend want also to be identified with the child? Because kana in a family yake, they were just helping you out and they don't want nothing to do with kuzikana kunzindie muridzwe mwana. Probably anozongeta chipin nozongona and you just say uncle, you know, from afar, you know, but you know, they don't want to be really, you know, attached to that child or people to know that kuti ndewake. But then also, in terms of to say ladies, they should know whom to pick. Sometimes they do. People are very intentional about it, you know, to say, I really want this person. But then in an aspect where you don't really know how the person is going to change in the long run. They can be good, they can be the best of person, you know, a gentleman, a perfect everything, and you say, okay, this is the right person. But then now you get into it and you realize, oh my God, I'm looking at a narcissist, I'm looking at a very toxic person. We did toxic parenting the other time. Yeah. So, and you're like, this was the worst mistake, but you can't take it back. Can you take that baby back? No,
and now
can't.
that you've mentioned toxicity, as we conclude, it's unfortunate that we've really run out of time. But as we conclude, talking about toxicity, let's look at how toxic it can be to have this new person in your life. Kana wakuda kurorwa, sometimes aurorwe baba wako wasipo, whether wakura vachikuchengeta kana kuti avana, you know, they need to come and they need to be making those decisions, vachichaja zvinanadanga. And I'm looking at you, I'm like, I don't even know you, you know? How is that not toxic, Chenge?
It's I can only imagine it to be toxic, right? Because I can't speak from that perspective because I had a present father. But it's one of those things of, we are 5 in our family. When the oldest got married, my father literally drew up a template and he said, in the event of my death, this is what you follow because I'm the father. This is what I've said, right? So even if another baba steps in, it's a dead man's wishes.
Okay.
You have to abide by them. And everybody knew it. But also, thinking back on growing up, imagining growing up without a father and then they come and they start charging what they want. I can imagine that there would be anger and resentment. I actually do know of a case whereby someone was raised by their bamkuru, at least it was still a father figure. But when it was time for her to get married, the father's like, okay, you do your thing. He actually gave them the, you know, and then she called on the day of Aurora. They're asking for this, they're asking for that. I don't think I'm going to get married. Then he had to step in again and be like, listen, I raised this child since she was a baby. I did this so that you people could do this properly. If you can't, I'll set it. And then he took the Aurora list and he put reasonable things. And he said, Mwananga arorwe, kwete kutengwa.
Kwete kutengwa.
Right. And he gave it back. But then again, that shows the importance of a father figure.
All right.
You know.
Chaplain, as we conclude, your last words regarding what we've just been talking about, I'll just give you the honors to wrap up on behalf of the ladies.
Regardless of how evil, how good, how elusive and evasive your father is, he still is your father. Whether you are a single mom, we have single moms in the Bible. Hagar, she took care of Ishmael. But Ishmael was Abraham's son. Abraham actually blessed his child before he died. And Ishmael to come together to join hands with his brother Isaac when their father had died, bearing a man who would not take care of him. Why? Because it is actually a divine command. Where God, he doesn't say whether your father is good or bad or whatever. He says, honor your father and your mother, so that your days may increase, may be many, may be multiplied. In the land, that's the land, in the world in which we live. So I encourage mothers, please show these kids where their fathers are or who their fathers are, whether he's a drunkard, whether he's this or that, because this father has a tendency of living through his child. He's actually alive through his child. You'll see some tendencies, some actions here and there, which proves that this DNA, right, the DNA of a particular man is in this child. This will also allow the child to have closure, as you said, to identify, also to know the history, and also to perpetuate your father's name. As I said earlier on, our duties as children, our duty, our major duty, is to perpetuate our father's name into the next generation.
Our major duty, according to the chaplain, is to perpetuate our father's name into the next generation. So it is important for a child to know their father, know their identity. Ava kuphi dzinza rake nderipi, mtupo wake ndeupi, hanzi nachenge, mwana ndewababa, whether you like it or not. So do give us your views and comments on our Facebook page, ZBC News Online. This has been Inside Out, and today we were looking at the importance of fathers in a child's life. Nevaya vanozoti kana vakura ndakuzotsvaga baba vangu. It's just a whole complicated but interesting matter. So do give us your views and comments on our Facebook page, ZBC News Online. We would love to know what your thoughts are regarding this. Until we meet again, hopefully next week, pleasant viewing.